It was supposed to be one of the best nights of their lives. Graduation day. The parties, the laughter, the kind of joy that makes you believe the future is wide open. For Suzie Streeter and Stacy McCall, it was a night of celebration, bouncing from one get-together to the next, ending in what should have been the safety of a friend's home. Joining them was Suzie's mother, Sherrill Levitt, a warm, hard-working woman who had no reason to think the night ahead would be any different from the last. But by the morning of June 7, 1992, the world had shifted. The front porch light was smashed. All three of their cars still sat outside. Their purses, keys, and even the family dog were untouched inside the house. And yet, the women were gone. No witnesses, no signs of forced entry, just silence. In the days that followed, Springfield, Missouri, would find itself gripped by fear, speculation, and a mystery that remains unsolved 33 years later. And as investigators dug deeper, the story only grew stranger, leading to theories so dark they still haunt the community today. But the truth? That's the part no one has been able to find. The night of June 6, 1992, had been a whirlwind for Suzie Streeter and Stacy McCall. They'd just walked across the stage at Kickapoo High School, diplomas in hand, futures ahead of them. After the ceremony came a string of graduation parties, and everyone is buzzing with what's next conversations. The plan was simple. Stacy would sleep over at Suzie's after the last party. That way, they could head to a water park with friends the next day. But as the night wore on, they decided to skip crashing at another friend's crowded house and head back to Suzie's home instead. The small, tidy house her mother Sherrill had bought just 2 months earlier. What happened after they walked through that front door remains one of the most baffling mysteries in American crime. The next morning, friends began arriving to pick the girls up. They found something off right away. Sherrill's new car and both girls' vehicles were parked neatly in the driveway. Inside, all three women's purses sat in plain view, each containing cash, identification, and keys. Sherrill's cigarettes, something she rarely went without, were still on the counter. The family dog Cinnamon was there too, wandering nervously inside. But the house wasn't trashed. There were no signs of forced entry, no overturned furniture, no shattered glass. One detail stood out to everyone: the answering machine. At some point in the early hours, it had recorded a message. No one knows exactly what it said, because it was accidentally erased before investigators could hear it. That, to this day, is considered one of the most frustrating missteps in the case. By midday, worry turned to panic. Friends called police, and an official missing persons report was filed. Within hours, Springfield police were at the home, sealing it off with crime scene tape. Neighbors were questioned. Local hospitals were checked. But as daylight faded into evening, the same question kept circling back. That question would launch one of the largest search efforts in Missouri history, and it would quickly lead investigators to a set of clues that only deepened the mystery. Because as they soon discovered, something about that night didn't add up. From the moment the police stepped inside Sherrill Levitt's home, they knew this wasn't a typical missing persons case. The scene was too still. No sign of a struggle. No valuables missing. It was as if the three women had simply stepped out and never stepped back in. The first move was to launch a rapid neighborhood canvass. Officers knocked on doors up and down the quiet street, asking if anyone had seen or heard anything unusual in the early hours of June 7th. Some neighbors mentioned hearing dogs barking. One claimed to have seen a green van in the area around dawn.
At this time, however, we are not sure that it would in any way be associated with their disappearance. The possibility does exist.
And that van has never been identified. By that afternoon, the search expanded far beyond the street. Officers combed nearby fields, wooded areas, and riverbanks. Helicopters circled overhead. K-9 units were brought in, sniffing for any trace of the women. But there was nothing. Then there was the matter of that erased answering machine message. Investigators believe it could have contained a crucial clue, maybe even the voice of someone involved. But before the police could secure it, a well-meaning friend or family member accidentally deleted it while trying to check for messages. That single slip erased what might have been the best lead of the entire case. As hours turned into days, the hunt became all-consuming. The FBI joined the effort, along with state and local law enforcement. Missing persons posters went up across Missouri. News coverage exploded, turning the Springfield Three into a statewide and eventually national mystery. Investigators chased dozens of tips. Some claimed the women had been seen at a convenience store hours after they were last known to be home. Others swore they'd spotted them in a nearby town. Each lead was checked, but none held up. A break seemed possible when a tip pointed to a possible burial site, under a hospital parking garage in Springfield. The theory was that the garage had been built after the women vanished, potentially sealing their fate beneath concrete. But drilling and scanning produced no evidence, and the tip went cold. The deeper investigators dug, the stranger it all became. Why leave behind cars, cash, and personal belongings? Why take 3 people at once without leaving a trace? And how could it happen in a suburban neighborhood without a single solid witness? Every unanswered question pushed the case further into the realm of chilling speculation. And as the days became weeks, the tone in Springfield began to shift. This wasn't just a disappearance anymore. It was something darker. Theories began to swirl, whispered over coffee counters and through late-night phone calls. Some pointed to strangers passing through town. Others were certain the women had been targeted by someone they knew. And then, one name began to surface. As the investigation stretched on, one unsettling reality began to sink in. The odds of finding Sherrill, Suzie, and Stacy alive were slipping away. And when hope fades, suspicion takes over. The first wave of theories centered on someone passing through town, a transient predator who saw an opportunity and acted quickly. Springfield sits near major highways, making it a perfect spot for someone to vanish without a trace. But the problem with this theory? Removing 3 people at once without any noise or visible struggle would have taken precision, planning, and nerves of steel. That's not the typical profile of a random drifter. Then there were the whispers about a green van. Multiple residents reported seeing it in the early morning hours, but no one got a clear plate number or look at the driver. Police chased every lead tied to a van. Nothing panned out. But the theory that gripped public attention the most came from a man already behind bars, Robert Craig Cox. Cox was no ordinary inmate. He was a former Army Ranger and a convicted kidnapper who had once been sentenced to death in Florida for murder, a conviction later overturned on appeal. By the mid-90s, he was serving time in Texas for an unrelated kidnapping when he dropped a bombshell during an interview with a local TV reporter. He claimed to know the Springfield Three were dead and where they were buried. Cox's story was as chilling as it was vague. He refused to give specifics, saying investigators would never find the bodies and that the case would remain unsolved. Police questioned him extensively, but every detail he provided was either unverifiable or intentionally evasive. Some detectives believed he was simply playing games to gain attention. Others thought he might have been involved. But without evidence, Cox walked away as a person of interest, not a suspect. In 1993, investigators explored whether the women could have been taken as part of a retaliation plot connected to Suzie's testimony in a criminal case against a man accused of breaking into a car. It wasn't far-fetched to think someone might seek revenge, but no credible link was ever proven. Some believed the crime was committed by multiple offenders, possibly luring the women out of the house before overpowering them. Others thought the women had been taken elsewhere, held for a time, and then killed, the kind of theory that explains the complete lack of physical evidence in the home. And then there's the haunting idea that the women's final resting place could be hidden in plain sight, beneath a structure, buried on private land, or submerged in a body of water. Over the decades, tips have come in pointing to wells, farms, and remote stretches of countryside. None have yielded answers. Each theory raises its own impossible questions, and with every year that passes, the truth seems to slip further out of reach. But what remains constant is the feeling that someone, somewhere, knows exactly what happened that night and has been carrying that secret for more than 3 decades. The leads had gone cold, the case was stalling, and yet Springfield was about to realize this mystery wasn't fading from memory anytime soon. In the weeks after the disappearance, the Springfield Police Department kept the case front and center. Press conferences were held regularly, tips were chased in every direction, and the women's faces were everywhere, on flyers, billboards, and nightly news broadcasts. But as summer turned to fall, the flood of leads began to dry up. Without new information, the case started to fade from national headlines. In Springfield, though, it never really left. For Sherrill's family, for Suzie's friends, for Stacy's classmates, life split into 2 eras, before June 7, 1992, and after. Detectives rotated in and out of the case over the years. Each one brought a fresh set of eyes, re-examining files, re-interviewing witnesses, hoping a new detail might unlock the truth. But no matter how many times they pulled at the threads, the same empty questions unraveled. For the families, the not knowing was worse than any confirmed tragedy. Unable to move forward, unable to properly mourn. Birthdays passed, holidays came and went, and the women's chairs at family gatherings stayed empty. Every so often, the case would resurface in the media. An anniversary special on the local news. A new tip phoned in by someone who swore they'd overheard a confession years ago. A true crime TV segment that brought a brief surge of national attention. Each time, hope would flicker, only to be snuffed out again when nothing came of it. The rise of the internet and social media breathed new life into the mystery. Message boards, Reddit threads, and YouTube channels, trading theories and debating timelines. Yet even with modern forensic tools, ground-penetrating radar, and advanced DNA technology, no physical trace has ever been recovered. 33 years later, the Springfield Police Department still lists the disappearance as an open case, still takes tips, still hopes for that one break. Because in cases like this, history shows that sometimes, years, even decades later, someone talks. And when they do, a secret buried for a lifetime can finally see the light. Springfield is left with the same haunting truth it woke up to in 1992. 3 women went to sleep and were never to be seen or heard from again. If you want more cases like this, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and drop a comment with your thoughts on what you think happened that night. It helps keep these stories alive.